Hi, I just want to welcome everyone to our Winter Forum on the Business of Art. And I'm Carolyn Winter. I'm the president of the Sakonnet ARTS Network. And it's very exciting to be part of this group right now because we're doing lots of good things. We think we're happy that you could join us for this one. We are a collaborative nonprofit arts resource organization dedicated to enhancing the role of the arts and artists in the Sakonnet area. We're fortunate to have received some funding from the Rhode Island Foundation in 2008 and again in this year, 2009, to help with starting the organization up, launching our website, and initiating programs like this one. We look forward to doing even more and are eager to have your support and input in that process. I hope that people have had a chance to meet one another, and if you haven't met our board, I'd like to introduce them now. We'll just go around the room. If any board member has something in particular they want to add, please do so now. Gloria Chris is here.
Hello, everybody. Yes, bartender.
Bartender and actress in residence. Diane Santa greeted people in the back.
Nice to see you all.
Network coordinator is our administrative assistant, Janet Gendro. Doris Pulowski, who is our secretary. Ann Page is a member of our advisory board, and she's wonderful in terms of getting together for this event. So everyone be sure to thank Ann. Houston Scott, who's next, and then Helen Dadler. Stand up, please. Wait, stand up. Teresa Mary, you're not on the board, but you can stand up for a minute. I just want to point out that Helen is on the board. Teresa is a jewelry artist who has work on display in our case at Town Hall, and Helen has her watercolors on display right now in the Tiverton Town Hall, so I'd encourage you to see them before the end of February. Beginning of March. Beginning of March. Okay, so 2 months. Now you may be seated. Denise Zonda is another board member. Ginger Lacey is on our advisory board. Hello. And Barbara Humphrey is on our advisory board. And Rebecca Elwell is our vice president and will introduce the speaker. Thank you, everyone.
It's really very exciting to have everyone here. As anybody has ever planned an event or even a party at your own house, it gets close to the time and you wonder if anybody got your invitation and if they'll come. So to see a room that's nearly full is very gratifying and exciting for us. It means that we are on the right track with the things that we hope to be able to offer in the future as the Sakonnet ARTS Network. I want to also make sure that if you haven't, as you came in, if you will please sign in on your way out, so that we are sure that we're capturing people for our email list so that we can keep informed of things as they come up. Tonight it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Dorothy Boshin. Dorothy is a freelance arts business consultant with individual artists, for-profit creative entities, and nonprofit organizations. Dorothy has degrees in art and art history from the University of Washington at Seattle, and an extensive background in arts, business, finance, and personal coaching. While working at Seattle's esteemed Pilchuck Glass Studio in 1989, she began working on directly with numerous glass artists who have become the top artists in their field. She's also worked with public commission artists, musicians, photographers, woodworkers, printmakers, and painters as well. With the Newport Art Museum, the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, Henry Gallery, Elliott Brown Gallery, Craft Emergency Relief Fund, and the Population Media Center. We tried to find somebody who's pretty much done everything. We found her. Dorothy is considered a guru in career development for artists. She is, most importantly, maybe, an aspiring singer and songwriter. And the Sakonnet ARTS Network is very pleased to have her and to welcome her tonight.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here. It's very exciting to see so many people in the audience, and I think it's really a great time to be talking about art. And I'm coming around to this side of the table because I don't want to stand on this side. But, you know, with the way things are in the world right now, I think that it's wonderful that we're looking at, you know, supporting ourselves with, you know, the things that we're doing ourselves as far as art and music and performance and whatever. So I encourage everyone to continue on that path, and I think that this is the answer for the future, you know. But just a little bit of introduction, and thank you for that introduction. I started out in accounting, actually, in college, and business and marketing and economics and whatever. And I think it was probably my second year in that I realized I really didn't like the people so much, that I really wanted to be over there with the artists. They just look so cool. And, and so I decided to change my major. And I changed my major, and then my husband and I decided to have a child, and so we had a baby, and I quit school and moved down to Salem, Oregon. And at the time I was living in Washington State. And went down to Salem, and I was my daughter was about 4 years old, and I decided I needed to get back to school. So I moved up to Seattle and joined the arts, or the art department at the University of Washington, and art history department also, and graduated then with a degree in art. And then I really wanted to come out and work as an artist, or something that was directly related to the arts, and ended up finding a job with the Pilchuck Glass School. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with this organization, but it's really a phenomenal movement in this country, the glass movement. It's only about 40 years old. And so I really wanted to work at this place. And yet they wanted a bookkeeper. And I thought, oh, geez, you know, here I am going back into this, you know, accounting kind of realm. But I thought, you know, this is a great opportunity to be at the school, and I was going through a divorce. My ex-husband was a teacher, so he had the summers off. Our program, the Pilchuck Glass School, was a summer program, so my daughter would be able to spend the summers with her dad. I would be able to go up to campus, which was 50 miles north of Seattle, and be in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains in a cabin, and just really roughing it and being around all these very exciting people. And it was a very intense experience, or I thought it was going to be an intense experience. And so anyway, I took this job, and it really just started to open things up for me, interestingly, where the artists who were involved with the school were very interested in me, because I had this background in finance, and they had no concept of business or finance. And boy, I was just like, you know, I was so sought after. Well, I started working there in 1989, and in 1990, William Morris, and I don't know if you're familiar with his work, Bill Morris is his name. He's just phenomenal, and he's my age, 50, and he just retired. He has no need for any more money or any more awards or any more anything. He just decided to move to Hawaii and do his own thing. But he asked me if I would work for him. And I thought, well, I don't know. I've got this full-time job working for Pilchuck. I'm not quite sure if I really want to branch out, but I'll take a look at what you have. And at the time, I'm not quite sure how much he was making, but it wasn't too much, and he had enormous expenses associated with glass and his studio and supporting his staff and all of these things. And so I went up and I looked at what he had, and he brought everything to me in a plastic milk carton. And I was just amazed. I was like, wow, this guy really needs my help. And so, and so I said, sure, I'll take it on. And so as we got going, and he started to realize more of what it took to be a business person in the art world, he really started to understand what he needed to keep his eye on, and what his income was, what his expenses were, how he could raise money, to fund some of his installations that he decided to do that weren't cost, or that he wasn't getting any money for, no grants. So this was kind of self-promotion, and he learned well because he learned from Dale Chihuly. And I don't know if you know Dale, but he is the master of self-promotion. and I also worked with Dale for a while, so I kind of learned quite a bit from him. So anyway, it just kind of snowballed from there. Bill's business really started to take off. He did a book, which was another thing that he published for himself, but it was really kind of a turning point in his career. And because I worked for Bill Morris, there was another glass artist named Dante Marioni who wanted to follow in the footsteps. So anything that Bill did, Dante had to do. So he approached me and asked me if I would work for him. And I thought, well, I don't know. I'm taking on quite a bit, working full-time over here. And so I said, okay, I think that this is interesting. His work is phenomenal. So anyway, it just really took off from there. And I started working with all these glass artists in the early 90s when they were really riding this incredible wave of success. And boy, it didn't really matter what they were doing. If it was glass, they were famous, or they were going to make it, and they were making lots of money, and it was very funny. Well, fortunately for everyone else, if there are no glass artists in the room, that wave is sort of crested, and now things have been falling off a little bit for the glass world, and that ceramics are coming back and people are collecting other things instead. So it was really exciting to work with these artists. And in the meantime, like I said, I was working at Pilchuck, and Pilchuck is a nonprofit organization. And so from there, I really gleaned a lot about what it is to be a manager for funds, financial aspect, and fund accounting, and so on and so forth for nonprofit organizations. So I have kind of an interesting blend of experience. And so then I decided to really go out and full-time get away from working at nonprofit organizations or places like Pilchuck and working specifically with artists. And so from Dante, I started working with a mosaic artist. She was a printmaker as well as a cast glass artist. She did public installations, but at the time she hired me, she really wasn't sure what she wanted to do. She was trying to figure out what avenue, because people didn't know her as a glass artist, they didn't know her as a printmaker, they didn't know her as a mosaicist or a ceramic artist. She couldn't really figure out what it was that she was doing. She was doing all of these different things. And so for a couple of years, we spent sending out her portfolio to all these different galleries, and nobody was biting. And so in the meantime, her bread and butter was public art competitions. And so she started to submit more and more of these applications to these public art competitions, and she kept getting them. And so after about 2 years, we decided that that really was where her strength was. And so now she's doing public art stuff, which is really interesting. And she's done some phenomenal work. One piece is at the Atlanta airport, and she just won an award for it. And it's just absolutely phenomenal. This great big suspended mosaic piece that's got steel parts to it, and then she does the terrazzo floor, and it's really amazing. So I worked with her and just kind of a bunch of different people. I had a musician approach me recently and ask if I would help market him or help him to sort of market what he's doing. And so we put a plan together, and it was very successful, which was really great. And so anyway, I have a lot of experience, a lot of different kinds of experience. And so I really want to touch on some of the points that were brought up as far as what was advertised here, so that you don't have any misconceptions as to why I'm here. As far as like getting set up in business, one of the things that I like to talk to artists about, and I do coaching, is that depending on really what you're doing and where you are in your business, I think that it's important to really understand what your strengths are. And so if you are working as a watercolorist or a painter or a sculptor, multimedia, performance artist, somebody brought up performance art, it's important to understand, you know, what you're doing and to really work on developing that so that you can really start to promote yourself. And so setting up a business is kind of an easy thing, I think, you know, getting a business license and getting a set of books set up and so on and so forth. But I think that there are other things to consider, and you know, if you are interested in, well, one of the things I guess I definitely would like to talk to people about are setting goals for yourself. So if you have an interest in being the best, you know, watercolorist on the planet, well, what is it going to take to get to that point? Or, you know, performance art, or, you know, being a singer-songwriter, what's it going to take to get to that end point of being the best? Or even if it's not the best, just being interested in making some money at it. If you want to make a lot of money at it, then I would say you're going to be setting that goal. So I would say that to start with, you would set the goal for, gosh, I really want this to be my lifelong pursuit. This is how much money I need to live on, and even if it's crazy, if it's a crazy amount, you know, put it down anyway. Write these things down, and then start to fill in from here to there what it's going to take to get there. And so, is it realistic? You can ask yourself those questions. If it's looks like it's only going to be a part-time endeavor because you have a real job and you don't really want to be a starving artist, which I didn't want to do. I came out of school with a degree in art but had to support my daughter, so I decided to go to falling back on what I knew. And so there are steps along the way to really understand what it's going to take. And as you make that effort to understand what it's going to take and getting organized, you might realize that you might not have it. You might not be able to support yourself. So it could be just that it's a part-time endeavor and that, you know, you just get the enjoyment out of, you know, just making what you make. But at least you're going through the motions of trying to understand that. So getting set up, I would say, you know, from a business perspective, I like to coach people on really getting organized, getting a checkbook set up so that it's separate from your personal account, understanding what your expenses are, understanding what you can write off as a business. Is this just a hobby? Is this something that you can actually file a, you know, Schedule C form for with the IRS? And so just really understanding what it is as far as your business is concerned. So, you know, what your supply costs are, keeping those things down. Do you want to take classes to help you to develop what it is that you're doing? And I think that that's really important. And sometimes you have to front load, spend quite a bit more than what you're earning to understand your potential. And you know, having conversations with other people, other artists, you know, how are they going about getting set up in business? Where are they selling their work? And then also it's getting a great portfolio together, and that's something that I have seen kind of the full gamut. And I've worked with artists who, for example, this woman in Seattle who was a phenomenal painter, and she painted with paper slurry, which is very interesting, on paper. And she was so incredible, and I really wanted to try to promote her work. And so I asked her if I could, just what it would take as far as what the price point was with her work and where we would market this work. And she had set her prices so amazingly high that there was no way that I was going to be really able to help her. She wanted like $3,000 for a painting, and nobody knew who she was. And so I had to have a conversation with her to say that, well, when you're getting started, you really have to sort of be humble. You have to just, say, okay, well, I really want $3,000 for this, but if that's going to be the retail price, that means I'm only going to be getting $1,500 for this, because most galleries, if that's how you're selling, take 50%. And I would have suggested to her that maybe you want to bring your prices down to about $500 or $600 just to get people interested. And it's kind of a commitment that you make. You understand you've got to sort of pay the piper sort of to begin with. And so anyway, we finally reached a consensus. And she said, okay, I can let go of this work for $500 or $600, which was really phenomenal. And we got things going for her, where now she's actually up to $1,500 selling these paintings. But she really had to come to some terms with what it takes to sell her work. And then, once she gets to be really well known, then she can be asking $3,000 wholesale and selling the work for $6,000. But so it really is, getting started is just realizing what your strengths are, getting organized, setting goals. What is it that you want to do with your work? And then doing the research to find things that are going to meet some of your goals, like competitions, if that's the route that you want to go through. If you want to get your work out there, so to speak, and this is a way to promote your work, is through competitions. And then once you kind of get things organized and set up and you've got the body of work, and that's important. A lot of times artists will approach me and they maybe have 2 or 3 pieces and they really want to get the work out to galleries, and I say, well, 2 or 3 pieces is really not enough. You have to have a body of work, and that would be probably like 8 pieces minimum. So, and also you have to be ready to, once the work goes out there, if somebody's interested, to be able to meet any kind of demand if there is, sales that happen. So you really have to show anybody that you're marketing your work to that you are that you're able to meet any kind of demand. So you don't want to have just 2 or 3 pieces.
When you were saying like a very solid portfolio, is that the minimum is like 8 to 10 pieces?
I would say yes. Yep.
Is there like an idea, the kind of relative size or a way to, is it better to do it electronically or?
To do electronically?
Electronic portfolio?
Yeah, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Yeah. So I think that, for a body of work, and so really just getting yourself set up as far as making it as an artist. So then, and then I think I will talk about the portfolio next. So one of the pieces of making it as an artist is to have a solid portfolio. And the portfolio, oftentimes artists I've worked with thought, geez, the photographer's so expensive, I just can't afford it. Well, that's true, but you really do have to have a solid portfolio that looks fantastic. I have a great story, anecdotally, to communicate with this one artist that I was working with. Actually, I wasn't working with her. She was a friend of mine. She was a stained glass artist, and she cut hair to support herself and her kids. And I had only known her as a stained glass artist. And so she called me up. I was in Seattle, and she asked if she could come down and show me this portfolio that she had just put together. And she was going around the corner to a gallery, which is one of the top galleries in Seattle, to see if he would be interested in her work. And so she came into my office and she brought me this beautiful leather bound that she found someplace, portfolio that she opened up. And this was back in the day when it was film. And they were the 2x4, what are they, 4x6s or the 4x6s? Transparencies. And she had one transparency on a page per page in this portfolio. And these transparencies were of this work that I've never seen. I had no idea that she was doing this work. It was absolutely knock your socks off, phenomenal. It wasn't stained glass. It was something else. So she was doing these glass teacups with these beautiful backgrounds and things and shelves. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. It was such a beautiful portfolio. Well, so I told her it was beautiful. And so she went around the corner and she went to this appointment. And she called me later in the afternoon and she said, Dorothy, not only did the gallerist like the work, she got a solo show. And she had never had a solo show. This was of this work. And so it was really amazing. So the strength of your portfolio is very important. And being able to support, again, you know, the quantity of the work that you have. Can you continue this work? And so the portfolio, right now, I think that film is out, digital is in, and I think that, you know, the CDs that you put the work on, I think that is the way that you would be sending the work out to the galleries. And it's also a great exercise. You know, I think that if you're not going to be sending it out, well, put it together anyway, you know, and at least go through the motions of trying to understand what it is that you need to do. That way you're sort of prepared when something does come up and or to meet any kind of opportunity that might arise. You're ready. And so that would be part of this being successful as an artist, is having a very strong portfolio. As far as marketing is concerned, and this is something that I tell all of my artists, is that that's the hardest part, you know? It's like you can have an incredible portfolio, an incredible body of work, know a lot of people, and you are geared up, you're ready, but it's really difficult to market. And so for me, marketing is the biggest challenge, but it's really understanding your work, your strengths, understanding where you might want to show your work, and doing homework. So if there's a gallery that you walk into and you think, my gosh, my work would look just phenomenal here, you know, then I would say put a nice introductory letter together, and then very humbly approach the gallery. And these cold calls are the hardest thing. Most galleries, they are just inundated with portfolios, and a lot of them they don't even get looked at, and they end up in the garbage, which is really sad. But if you do your homework and you think that this is a great fit, I think that most likely the gallery will look at it. If it's unrelated, if the work is unrelated to what the gallery's focus is, then they're not even going to look at it, so don't waste your time. But I went down with one of my artists who lives in Vermont. He's a sculptor, and he's really amazing. And we decided to just go to New York and just go to Chelsea and just go door to door in every gallery, and to see what would be a good fit for him. And he was looking at space, I was looking at the artwork. And so when we left, there was a consensus that we really decided the 5 galleries that we were looking at, that we looked at, were the galleries that we would approach. And he was accepted into one of those galleries, which is really amazing. So that's another way. Marketing is hard, getting publicity is difficult, but in some ways, do whatever you can to get it. And so if you have an opportunity to be on a postcard for a local event or something like that, take it. Whatever you can do, because one thing, it gets on your resume. It's important to have a strong resume. That's another thing that goes into your portfolio. And so any opportunity that you can grab to get your work out there is really important. Even if you think it's dumb, you know, it's like, oh, I don't know, I shouldn't be in this place. Well, anything is an opportunity. An opportunity to get your work hung is really important. And if this is, I'm just talking about visual artists, so excuse me if there are other people like the performing artists or, but again, as far as performance artists are concerned, with this musician that I'm working with, any gig that he can get goes on his resume. And so that's really important too. And so building your resume is key. Because a lot of people, if you are looking to submit your work to a competition, if you show your resume and you don't have anything on there, most likely they're not going to accept your work.
Are you selective when you put together that resume? Or do you put everything?
Everything, yeah. Curriculum vitae, absolutely everything, every opportunity. Yep. Absolutely, even because they don't know that it was something, in, some place that wasn't. I'm sorry.
Tiverton Town Hall.
Right, exactly. Any opportunity to get your work out there is so important. For one, it's something that you can put on your resume, and for two, people are viewing your work, and that's important. And it's also you going through the motions, and all the emotions that you experience. Getting the work done, if it's getting the resume put together, getting the, getting the CD done if you have digital photo, or getting the photos done, getting whatever. You're getting it done. And one of the things that is important to jump around a little bit as far as getting your work done is setting some deadlines for yourself. Even if they're artificial. And I think that is one of the things that I have done with some of my artists. This guy in Vermont was like, gosh, I'm just chomping at the bit. I really want, how soon can we get this work out there? It's like, well, buddy, you only got 2 pieces. I need more than that. I need a body of work. So I said, okay, look, let's set a deadline so that, by April 30, you've got 3 more pieces. And he did it, which was amazing. And so we had 5 pieces. And then that was when we actually were able to really put something together, or start to put something together. And in the meantime, he worked on some other work. So setting deadlines is really a good thing to do. So marketing. Anything else? Does anybody have any questions about marketing? Any experiences that you've had, your concerns?
Shows, and I was curious, since you worked with glass artists in the past, there was a time where you could make a good deal of money doing wholesale craft shows.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but in the past several years, not just because of last year, they've just really gone down.
Yeah.
I did take a marketing workshop, and one of the things that he told me was, look at how much you spend every year on marketing, and put that number on top of your board, and then just think of other ways you could use that money for. Well, the show that I normally do in Philadelphia, my expenses are about $3,000.
Yep.
And when I looked at the numbers that I got in the galleries, I just decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you have any other ideas sort of outside that box. It seems like that's sort of dwindling, and if there's like any sort of new ideas as to marketing in the crafts world.
Right. Well, I don't know. And in the glass world, did you say?
In the craft.
In the craft world. Okay. I really don't know. I have attended the Philadelphia Craft Show, the Baltimore Craft Show, and that seems to be, if you have products that you're selling to the trade, so that then they're going out and taking these objects to their outlets, their stores, or whatever. I don't know of any other way of marketing besides these craft shows. I don't know. For the kind of the numbers that you might need, or I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
Teresa and I talked about this once, and I was wondering what you think about, we talked about like going outside of the competitive world of the craft show, and whether going to an interior design show, she does cover hangings and pretty dramatic pieces that maybe instead of competing against all the other artists that are in your same field in an environment,
Right.
is that?
Okay, well, actually, that's a good
to kinda
point.
go
So,
outside of the box
yeah, that's a good
themselves and-
point. So I guess it depends on what you're selling. And so if you're selling, something that the interior design world would be interested in, then absolutely go, start looking at and doing some research.
Because paintings would sell that way.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Hasn't the craft business been affected by the large, the huge stores like Christmas tree shops and all these shops that have really minimized the value of American-made crafts by craftsmen because they're being imported from overseas? So you have the quality gone down, and you have a lot of Americans who really made some quality crafts. They're not being really looked at
Right.
anymore.
Well, I think that the market's still there for sure for handmade, and there are lots of really great stores that are coming up in other towns. I mean, Seattle has an incredible bunch of stores in different districts that really sell the kind of craft that you're talking about. They go to the Baltimore shows, they go to the Philadelphia shows, and they buy.
And Madam Quay, I was so frustrated with my wholesale. I have about 50 galleries.
I'm sorry, you're frustrated with?
With all of my wholesale accounts.
Yeah.
I have 50 galleries I deal with.
Yeah.
In October, they just died.
Yeah.
They don't reorder.
Right.
I call, they've sold things. They're making all these really nervous mistakes that they don't want to spend any money because of the economy.
Right.
And I just think, what do you have in your shop?
Right.
A bunch of stuff you couldn't sell in the good economy.
And that
It's
is,
so frustrating.
it is frustrating. And I know that the economy is, the artists are being affected. Absolutely, everybody's being affected by the economy.
I'm doing better just selling it myself. I was sort of thinking like, well, just
Right. And and we all have to make those kinds of adjustments too. If you know that your sales are being affected because of the economy, well then, be creative and come up with some other solutions. If you want to sell at a fair that is happening, and look at those fairs, because there are some really incredible fairs out there, and get the statistics and find out how they're doing, and and there might be some that are more affordable than others. Some people don't really like to sit there in selling retail. You would rather take orders and sell wholesale, but. Yeah, so it's just really being creative, I think, right now, for sure. And I know everybody's being affected by the economy, the state of the economy. So let's see, what else? Oh yes, hi.
What is your impression of eBay? I'm a painter, and I went on and set up an account and everything, and I was so horrified by, prices from $5 to $8,000 and like 47,000 pages.
Right.
I just saved it in my little bookmark, and I never went back to it again.
Yeah.
Because-
Well, I think it's whatever your comfort level is.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable selling your work or selling work on eBay, then I think it's a great way to get work out there. I have a friend who purchases amazing paintings, but they're from some estate or something, and he's been very successful in getting some beautiful paintings over by eBay and getting some incredible deals too. So whatever your comfort level is, if that's where you feel comfortable selling your work, then I'd say go for it, absolutely, because I think it's an excellent venue for people to view. There are a lot of people on eBay viewing, for sure. So.
There's another site that sells all homemade goods called Etsy.
Etsy?
Etsy.
Mhm.
Which actually I read has more viewers than eBay.
Oh, is that right? Uh-huh.
More hits. And it has very quality handmade.
How do you spell it?
ETSY.
Mhm.
But-
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
And aside from that, I had a question.
Mhm.
So once you have, and I don't know if this is in terms of a mailing list as a
Yep.
marketing tool, once you have a mailing list of people who are interested or people who have actually purchased your work, how can you optimize using that mailing list?
Right.
Besides sending out when you have a show or something?
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, mailing lists are very important. So again, any opportunity that you have to collect information, collect people's names and addresses, take it, because then you put them on your mailing list, you keep building your mailing list. And then when any opportunity, if you have a sale, that might be out of your home, you might have an open house, or you might have a sale that you've put together with a friend at some local venue or something like that, or any opportunity. So if you have a gallery sale, or if you're at a wholesale show or something like that even, it's a great opportunity to put a postcard together.
I mean, I use it routinely for those kinds of things. Are there other kinds of outreach kind of things you can do?
Well, I guess it's being creative,
Keep yourself out there.
Yeah, not that I've.
Trade your list. And I did have
With a different type of artist, like you and Teresa.
That's
it's
true.
completely different.
Right.
So you could share
What
your
about
mailing list.
sharing mailing lists?
Oh, it's an excellent idea. In fact, as far as collaborations and any kind of opportunities to collaborate with each other, and I really want to encourage everyone to, get together and have little informal groups of talking about this, and don't just think it's just some silly idea. Do it.
And
You
you
know.
don't think customers would have do people mind if you're giving their name to someone else? Because they gave it to you. I don't know. It does seem like a good idea, but
Sort of a lot of the clientele are already people involved in
are
purchasing
interested in
art.
the
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
interested in like different.
Well, as long as you don't slam them with, all kinds of stuff. I think that if you're selective and, yeah.
I wanted to mention, I do use an email service and it's called Constant Contact.
Right, yeah.
And when you put someone on there, if they want to unsubscribe for any reason, you have no chance to ever email them.
You have no chance.
They take them off the list, you cannot email them again.
Uh-huh.
So it's not like you're.
So
paying-
constant contact
And
is, I've heard it's a
worked
great
really well
service.
for me.
Yeah, that's great. Did you have a question?
I was wondering, back to the
eBay?
eBay and stuff. I wondered if there's an online resource. She mentioned Etsy, but that's not, I don't think it's exactly what I'm asking. Is there a LinkedIn for artists? You know what LinkedIn is? It's like Facebook, but it's business oriented.
That's a good question. I don't know.
There should be.
There should be.
there's a lot of artists that blog. That
Yep.
painting a day blogging
Yep.
is something that, people communicate and say, I have a blog, so I post you on my blog, you post me on your blog.
Right,
and
yeah.
back and forth.
But I wonder if I was a collector, I wonder if there must be a place online for me to go and say, I want an oil painting by a woman,
Right.
Art.com.
Okay.
What it's,
AskArt.com. It's a huge directory. I don't know what I have to do to get on it.
mm-hmm.
I think you can pay for the listing. I think it's like $16.50 a month for the listing. I was just looking at that.
Mhm. No, that's a good one, definitely. Well,
Yourself. Google another painter, see where it comes, where they are. That's how you find this place.
right.
Okay, thanks.
And I think partly too, as far as the marketing piece, I think that by, it's such a digital age now that, setting up blogs and setting up, getting a website up, I think it's a great idea. And, hoarding domain names, that might pertain to you or, what you do. And domain names are actually pretty cheap to pay for on an annual basis. And, if you've got 20 domain names that might have something to do with what your artwork is, and, somebody's typing in a word and boom, they puts you over into, links you over to.
I know you have to have a domain name in order to have a website,
Right, yep,
to register it.
yep.
I didn't know that you could have more than one.
Yes, you can. You can purchase as many as you want. I'm sorry?
How would you do that?
Well, whatever company you're working with, you just actually have to give them the names that you are asking for, and if nobody has that name already, then you can pay for it on an annual basis.
I just have to promote a class that we're doing for adults, which is exactly about that. It's setting up a blog, setting up websites. We make it all easy for you, and of course, this is referred to our little handout.
Great.
January 29th, it's 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and it's starting your artist blog. And I'm sure that if there's interest, we would consider running another session if that date or time is not convenient. we also have a session on photographing your artwork, and that is February 3rd, 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And both of those sessions are held here. And then we have Everyday Acting with Gloria Christ as well. So those are all in the pamphlet. And Gloria's session is Tuesdays, March 3rd and 10th. It's a 2-week session, also held here. So all of that information is in the pamphlets at the front of the page.
So if you take the acting lessons, you could do yourself on
You
YouTube.
might want to
That's right.
put in your arm.
Learn how.
And market yourself as an artist with utter confidence.
Right. That's great.
Or just hire Gloria.
Dorothy, can I say something?
I'll go over here first.
Okay.
Just as an aside about domain names, if you're going to use your own proper name, you need to do it very quickly. There are people who are mining domain names, and whenever they see a proper name, they buy your name and then try and sell it back to you for 10 or 20 times.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
it's very common.
Yeah, I heard something in the
If you do
news.
anything with your own proper name, it'll be gone within 24 hours.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you have to do it right away.
I'd like to just say, as a person who promotes lots of different businesses and artists and lots of different things, the most important thing you can do is learn how to photograph your art.
That's
If
right.
you don't learn how to do anything else, learn how to photograph it. Nobody can promote you. You can't promote yourself until you have good photographs.
That's right,
So
exactly.
you don't learn anything else.
Right.
Learn that.
And don't put anything out there that is marginal.
Yeah.
I would say, ask your friends what they think about, some photographs that you've done, and ask for their honest opinion, because I've seen some terrible stuff out there, and it is such a huge disservice, because if you put that out there and then they see it, if a gallery sees it or anybody, whatever you're promoting, they will just, it's gone. It's in the trash can faster than you can imagine. And then if you finally get your act together and come back and they happen to remember you, they're going to say, well, wasn't this the person that had those really bad photos? Or
I don't think they remember that.
Right. So this all ties into the concept of professionalism. And professionalism, I think, is just really important. How you promote yourself, how you present yourself, and then also how you conduct your own business. I think that it's important to be thinking about what is professionalism, and how do I look to people who I am promoting myself to. So I think it's really important to just make sure that you have a class act before you put anything out there. As far as gallery contacts, and then again, this is, it goes with anything that you're submitting this stuff to. Galleries in particular, I mentioned a little earlier that they're very finicky. It's better to know somebody. It's better to, if you have a friend who can introduce you to a gallery, that's really important. Cold calls are not an easy way to get your work out there, and my friend Ann Gardner, who is the mosaicist public artist person, will attest to that. We worked for 2 years getting her portfolio at $35 or $40 a pop, and we probably sent 200 of them out there over a 2-year period. It cost her a fortune, and but we finally figured out what it was what her direction was. But so gallery contacts are troublesome. I would say any opportunity that you can take to go to openings, to introduce yourself, to, like I said, also having other people introduce you is really important. And I think that collaborations, I just want to talk about that, for example. I know that working with glass artists, it was a very collaborative field, and it's a lot of people getting together, a lot of teamwork, and I really appreciated and enjoyed and learned a lot from other people and getting together with people on a regular basis. When I moved to Vermont, I was in Vermont previous to moving here to Providence. I was up there for 5 years, and I noticed that a lot of people were, at the end of long driveways, and they didn't really collaborate. And so even, you know, and I know that a lot of people in the visual arts, like painters and watercolors and whatnot, you might not think that you need to collaborate or that you to get together with other people, or that this is my work and I really don't need any input from anybody else. But I think it's a really great idea to get together, and even just an informal group, if that is your thing, and just share ideas, talk back and forth. What experiences have they had with, and or put something together. You know, find a town hall and put a show together and just be out there. And that is one really good way to get yourself promoted, self-promotion, and to do it shamelessly. I think it's an okay thing to do for sure. So. You know, image and identity is something that is part of promoting yourself. You know, kind of creating this mystery or creating whatever you want to create. Working with Dale Chihuly, really learned a lot about, and one of the things that I try to talk to the artists that I work with about is how do you create excitement? And that's really important, is creating excitement around your work. And so if you really love, you know, the jewelry that you're making, how do you create excitement around it? You know, do something splashy, you know, with the photographs, do something really excellent with how you are presenting it, and create something for yourself. Artists that I work with, this one guy, this sculptor up in Vermont, his work is just phenomenal. He's in his mid-50s. He hasn't shown too many places now. He's really emerging, which is amazing from the perspective of his work getting out there. From the perspective of what his work is, he's definitely a mid-career, if not mature artist. His work is just phenomenal. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to really create some excitement around his work. And when we are sending out his portfolio, we kind of talk up, you know, I mean, not that we're talking, right.
It's sort of like, I want my computer to work, I don't want to have to try to figure out why the computer works. And
Right.
I don't mean to be sassy, I just, have a recommendation of like, okay, you gotta clock in this many hours.
Right. Well, part of this is being organized, the concept of being organized, so that you know that you've got the pieces that you need together. Whether you are actively putting the effort into the marketing part of it, it really depends on, you know, your level of tolerance, one, you know, I guess it really matters. It sort of depends on what your goals are. You know, I mean, if you say, gosh, you know, I really don't want to be marketing, this is not my thing, I would say then try to find somebody to do that for you. And you can be creative with that. Some people will do trades. Some people will, you know, just do it for minimal cost. Some people may just have some suggestions for you so that at least it makes it a little bit easier so you're not out there making cold calls. But I think it's sort of your level of tolerance and what your interest is. Some people are just great at marketing and they don't mind that they're spending that much time out there. But I would say whatever it takes to get your work done. If you need to spend 75% of all the time that you spend doing your work, just doing the work, then I would say spend the 75% on your work. And then you'll probably, you know, you have a really strong body of work. And then it's probably going to be easier to market it because you've got such a strong body. But that's not an easy question to answer.
It's almost like, it's a behavioral modification issue.
True.
You know, it's like cupcake or no cupcake.
Right.
It's a job or don't.
Right. Yep.
So do you have any recommendations for like propelling yourself into?
How do you do that?
Put yourself out there.
Right. Well, it's setting goals, and it really is. That is the thing. And I know that working with doing consulting work for like nonprofits, there are areas that are just so not my strength, and I can't stand doing it, and it's painful, and I just don't want to do it, but I know I have to. And so I just say, okay, this is the goal, this is what I'm going to do. And if I feel like I can't reach that goal, I will certainly go out and talk to people and try to get their input to see if maybe they might have some answers for me. But yeah, it's kind of grueling, and you just sort of have to do it. But it really boils down to just setting goals. And
even just make yourself do 2 things like a week.
Right.
That you're avoiding.
Right.
Pretty soon you run out of things.
Right. You know, actually, I brought this book in called The Artist's Way. Has anybody seen this, or have you read this? It's phenomenal, and it really does help with goal setting and understanding strengths and so on, and getting over where you're stuck. But it really is an excellent, excellent book. I highly recommend. Julia Cameron is the the author, and it's called The Artist's Way. So if you haven't seen it, it is so worth reading.
Now, you're a singer-songwriter?
I am. I'm an aspiring. Oh, okay, great. Have you seen this publication, Art in America, their annual source book? And this has a list of all the galleries everywhere, in every state, in every city. This one isn't. This one is 2006, 2007. But I think you can buy this actually in bookstores, and it's like $15 or something. But it's a good investment. And what they do is the galleries that are listed, they will tell you what their focus is. They'll tell you the other artists that are in here, and it's not just fine art galleries. I mean, there are craft galleries in here too, and this is an excellent, excellent resource. So it's good for homework.
Can you go back to the approaching galleries in terms of professionalism and so you need a CD with your photographs of your work on it. Should your resume also be on the CD? What are ways to make it professional? Should it be on paper and?
I would do paper and CD. I think that by putting something together that is a visual outside of just having a CD, I think is a good idea. It's a way to get somebody's attention.
The images are on CD, and then your resume is on paper. Are there ways to make your resume more flashy, or should you stick with the standard?
Well, I think it's important that you have every bit of experience on the resume, because that is informative.
And also people say don't make them long. So are you saying in the art world it's better to have pages? When you apply for a job, there's this thing about just doing that one page thing.
Yeah, like if you're applying for a job, you just kind of want to bullet the highlights, With art, I think that the more impressive, if you've got 40 pages to your resume, boy, that's impressive. And, like Bill Morris or some of the artists that I've worked with, and they've got 40-page resumes. I mean, it's amazing. So I'd say put everything on there.
And a letter of introduction?
Yeah, if you think that would be a connection to what you're submitting to, absolutely. Anything you can do to get your foot in the door, shamelessly. It's,
And then that's the discussion between cold calls and making appointments. I've been in some workshops where gallery owners pretty much said they don't want cold calls.
Right.
You're not going to do well unless you make the appointment.
That's a risk.
You've seen both? Or?
Yeah, I've seen both. And when I was working at the Elliott Brown Gallery in Seattle, we would get so many resumes. And the resumes that stood out were the ones, that were just, received without any prior, solicitation on our part or their part. The ones that stood out were the ones that were really well put together. And accessible, and they did their homework, and it was pertinent to our gallery. And we would sometimes just get the stuff. It's like, people, what are you doing? You wasted your money. It has nothing to do with what we're all about.
You mean knowing the gallery?
Knowing what the gallery is all about.
What kind of people they represent.
Right. Yeah.
how it fits.
Right, exactly, finding that fit. And so those cold calls, I think you can get their attention. And it's another opportunity to be creative, you know, to put together a portfolio that is tasty, that's kind of top drawer, you know, that looks good, and it's, you know, might have some splash of color or whatever. You know, it's an opportunity to be creative, but keeping in mind that you want it to be as professional looking as possible.
So what is it in the portfolio that costs $40 or $50 per portfolio to put together?
Well, that was back in the day when we did slides. And so we'd send out a whole page of slides, and those slides were costing us about $35 per page. And then we'd never get them back.
If you had magazine articles.
Yes,
things that
definitely.
you had been in publications, and you would want to include color copies of all that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
and you know, I think that even though you would be presenting your work digitally on a CD, I think it's okay to like have one or two examples, like the strongest pieces, and just have those, you know, printed up, photocopied, color copied, and then include those as a visual. Just a couple. Don't inundate what you're doing. Just but the strongest pieces, and only present your strongest work. Never put, you know, gee, I need to put 10 pieces into this. Don't give anything except your strongest work.
So when you're talking about that resume that you would approach a gallery with, do you just want to put your art? I mean, they don't want to know that you worked at
I'm sorry.
Play-Doh Shack or something. No. I mean, what do you do it the same way, or just the gallery?
I would say just your art experience. So if you went to art school, put that down for sure. Any, you know, lectures you may have done, workshops you've attended, anything that's related to your work definitely would be on that. And if you feel like Radio Shack is something that you are wanting to put on there, then, you know, put it on there for sure. Any more questions?
As far as grants go, has it pretty much totally dried up, those kinds of works?
To individuals, I would say yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
most of it's like collaborative art organizations, like this one, for example, or
Right.
educational.
Yeah, but there are still some grants out there, like the Rhode Island Foundation, or the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts does grant to individuals. Yep. And so maybe state councils do, and
Rhode Island just froze their entire state treasurer.
oh really? Yeah. Oh,
I know
interesting.
my daughter called me
Oh, yeah.
for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
The state treasurer, they got back.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. So the NEA doesn't, but you can also, you know, if you have an idea, you can align yourself with a nonprofit organization, and you can get funding through them to support what it is that you're trying to do, for sure.
Like your own project.
Exactly. If it involves community or children or
Right.
other artists or
Gang
something.
members.
Gang members. Yeah. Do you have a question? Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for Sakonnet ARTS Network.
Public offering as a presentation, and as well as a number of things that we've already been able to accomplish in a short amount of time. We've been able to offer a number of classes which were referred to, and there are some deadlines for signing up for some of them, particularly the blogging one. We've also been able to help underwrite school programs, after-school programs, and we look forward to continuing doing that and making more offerings for adult programs, more presentations like Dorothy's, and it's really great to see as many people come and kind of help this growing organization get some public validity. So thank you all for coming. Again, thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you.